when RJ Barrett got hurt, I came on the channel and I talked about how we're definitely better off having the 20-point per game player playing and the good offensive player. Definitely want to have RJ Barrett playing, but he is injured, unfortunately. So we will get the opportunity to see the Raptors with different lineup combinations with their starters to kind of get a better sense of different type of archetypes you can pair there. Because I speculated on changing the starting five, not change the minutes, but change the starting five to get maybe a little bit more space for the likes of Ingram and Barnes to play. Don't think that's the right way to go, but I speculated, but I wouldn't do that at this point. And then we have speculated for a long time what the Raptors could look like if you traded Barrett and you got maybe a more 3-and-D type of player to bring in, if it's possible, to pair with the likes of Ingram Barnes. Is that a better fit? So definitely better with RJ Barrett, but his injury has given us the chance to see what those different archetypes look like with the starters and maybe even the closers. But we've also seen what impact RJ Barrett brings to the team and what the Raptors are missing with him out. RJ Barrett has missed the last 5 games, and we talked about this earlier on in the stream today, but in the last 5 games, the Raptors' offensive rating has plummeted. They were like top 8 in the league in offensive rating, but in the last 5 games, they have an offensive rating of 106.9, and 106.9 offensive rating would be the worst offensive rating in the NBA. Small sample, but not even like the most difficult teams they've played in that stretch, especially on the defensive end of the floor. So definitely alarming. Definitely there's been an impact with RJ Barrett out. Definitely like they'd be better off having RJ Barrett in. So, as much as I've speculated on an RJ Barrett trade and a replacement and all that, I've never wavered that it's kind of tough to trade RJ because a lot of teams don't really value that contract. And if you trade RJ Barrett, you're probably making a trade that, you're getting players that are worse than Barrett. And at the end of the day, you're trying to win games. RJ Barrett is a good player that helps you win. So if you're not getting like a good trade that makes you better, just keep Barrett because he's a good player and he helps you win. And we've kind of seen a little bit of that in this stretch. So how much of this 5-game stretch is Raptors just struggling? How much can we look at it and say, man, look at the impact RJ Barrett is bringing to the team, and now we don't have him, look at the state of the offense. I don't think it's quite clear cut, look at the offense now that Barrett's out, but there is a little bit of a blend with that, and the Raptors have just hit a little bit of a rut for form. So as far as Barrett, look, you have a player who's averaging just under 20 points per game this season. He's been doing it quite efficiently this season. The thing I'm most happy about is the 2-point percentage being up to 59% right now this season, getting to the rim really well, and a true shooting percentage above 60. That's fantastic. Barrett has been great this season. Defense still kind of a little bit suspect, but the offense has been fantastic this season. Therefore, when he's out, you feel it, and you are going to miss it. And perhaps we're seeing a little bit of it's kind of like the half-court offense that is struggling, I think, the most, and there's definitely an impact from him there because, we saw, particularly the late win against the Hornets at home when we actually beat them. Just thinking about that play, when you send the double to Brandon Ingram, you have the cutting RJ Barrett who's able to make the play and score what was the winning bucket for the Raptors. You just lose a lot of that offensive pop that he can provide. Obviously, I just think it's obvious. You have your 20-point per game player, you take him out, and there's nobody really good enough to excel with all those extra touches. It kind of just, a little bit more touches for Ingram and Barnes. And Ingram has been tremendous lately, but a little bit more touch for them rather than somebody like a Walter or a Grady Dick or an Abaji rising up. I thought Walter has played well in this stretch without Barrett, but Grady Dick and Abaji have absolutely not played well in this stretch. Other than Grady Dick against the Blazers, Grady Dick was a lot better there. But Grady Dick and Ochai Abaji were struggling with the kind of added-on load, and the Raptors weren't getting enough support from the supporting cast, where that's where you kind of missed on the RJ Barrett injury. As for, kind of talking about as we're kind of discussing, what the different lineups look like, the different schemes can look like, I actually have quite enjoyed Jacoby Walter in the starting 5 as the replacement. I think his defense is nice to have with that starting group. we felt that a lot in the game against the Cavaliers, where he had a lot of defensive sets against Donovan Mitchell, who struggled in that game, particularly because of how well the Raptors played him defensively. And I like the additional floor spacing that he provides. So I think there is something to that style of player. Not like Walter, because there's limitations to his game. But as for that type of player, I find that type of player really interesting to put in with the rest of the guys in the starting five. So I like that. There was one game where the Raptors started calling Murray Boyles instead of Walter, and that just did not work. Murray Boyles didn't play very well. It just didn't seem like a great fit in that one. Murray Boyles should only start, I think, when Pirtle doesn't play, and even then, you probably should just go with Mamoukelashvili. And I like Murray Boyles. Just didn't really make sense to go with him instead of RJ Barrett in the starting five with RJ Barrett out injured, and I didn't really think it was going to work. It was a bit of a curious decision to go that way, but I do like the 3-and-D style of player with Quickly, Barnes, Ingram, and Pirtle. I thought that was really interesting. So as for the injury, the impact, what it means for the team, definitely half-court offense has felt the impact that. The offense in general has felt that. You just have a real creator, like just a guy who helps create offense. Not as like a playmaker type of creator, but a guy who like stuff can create from. And you're missing that level of scoring, and you're missing that level of that ability to get to the rim, to put pressure on the rim. And sometimes that can space the floor a little bit more for shooters if defense are collapsing. Barrett's improved as a playmaker, I felt like, with the Raptors. You're missing that. You are missing his presence absolutely on the offensive side of the ball. We have gotten some hints as to what life could look like beyond RJ Barrett if the Raptors are still keen to move off of him at some point. But definitely in this stretch of games, we have felt him missing. But I don't think, to kind of end off, I don't think that this is, like, people are tweeting, like, last 5 games of Barrett, we've struggled. Look, this is why you need to keep RJ Barrett. From a certain standpoint, yes, like, you're missing RJ Barrett. But from another standpoint, if you do think you can upgrade on RJ Barrett, like, it's not like if you trade Barrett, you just don't get anything back, and this is just your team just minus RJ Barrett. You're better off having RJ Barrett than if he's out injured, but you could definitely still make a case that, okay, but we could also improve the team, get a different player, bring that guy in for Barrett, and we'd see an improvement. So I don't think that this is the clear-cut evidence you cannot trade RJ Barrett. I think if the Raptors feel like there's a way to strike in the East this season, that's kind of the easiest piece to move on top of picks. But once again, reiterating, Barrett's a good player that helps this team win, as evidenced by this stretch. So if you're trading Barrett just to get off the contract and you get worse players and you use them in a salary dump scenario, which they tried to do last season, I'm not in support of that because, again, this is a good player that helps you win. Trading him in a salary dump makes you worse and makes it harder to win. And the Raptors right now are doing pretty well as the second seed in the Eastern Conference. So lots of information kind of gathered even in this stretch. Hopefully he is back soon because, again, he will aid the team and help them win games. But it's just been interesting to see how the team has looked in his absence. Clearly, it'd be nice to get him back and playing again.